Just kidding, the mute. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm just going to now allow everyone into the waiting room. Admit all. And just kidding, the mute. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm just going to now allow everyone into the waiting room. Admit all. And just kidding, the mute. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm just going to now and just kidding, the mute. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm just going to now and just kidding, the mute. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm just going to now and just kidding, the mute. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm just going to Oh, I seem to have signed out of YouTube. Oops. I seem to have signed out of YouTube. Oops. We're just waiting for people to YouTube. Just waiting for everyone to join us, and inshallah we will be starting soon. We're just waiting for people to YouTube. Just waiting for everyone to join us, and inshallah we will be starting soon. We're just waiting for people to YouTube. Just waiting for everyone to join us, and inshallah we will be starting soon. We're just waiting for people to just waiting for everyone to join us, and
I can hear my own echo. I'm just trying to get this echo out. Something has is on somehow. Just give me a moment.
We're just waiting for people to
This keeps reminding. Oh my God! So if I close,
waiting for everyone to join us, and
I can hear my own echo. I'm just trying to get this echo out.
Nikifika nyumbani, if I go, what's
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And I'm going to, kids, everyone can hear me, yes?
Yes, I can hear you. Assalamu alaikum.
Perfect. Wa alaikum salam. Okay, I had a screen on so I could hear myself echoing. So that was what the problem is. And inshallah, those of you who are joining us on YouTube, please do write in the comment section if there's any issue with sound or anything like that, so that we can. And we have people who are looking at the YouTube as well as the Zoom chat. So if there's any issues, please feel free to write in the comment section, and we will take care of that. And Sister Musarat, you are co-host, so keep letting people in.
Yes, I will do that.
There is a way to just let people just enter.
That's fine. I can keep an eye on that. That's not a problem.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Because we've already lost 7 minutes. I don't want to waste too much time.
Right.
So shall we allow? Should we go ahead with you starting?
So I'm just gonna just say a few words just to welcome everyone in. So thank you so much, everyone joining in once again to Iqra Library's session, and I'm really grateful to Zakira Shyrose to take the honors today to discuss the book with us, an interesting book, Third Man Factor, and she's very passionate about it, and I'm sure by the end of today's session we will too as well. So thank you everyone for joining in on a Friday night. I'm taking that time out, and please stay tuned. Put on your chat any questions, and inshallah Zakira Shyrose will cover that. So thank you everyone, and thank you so much Zakira Shyrose. And I won't waste a lot of time, just a little bit more information. Everybody knows Zakira Shyrose. Who hasn't heard her, mashallah? She has been around the world reciting the majalises. Alhamdulillah, we see her in Muharram, in the month of Safar, also the Mankabas. Just recently we've heard her in Haydari as well during the Wiladat program. She's a mother of 3 children, mashallah, married to a family physician, and she's got a Facebook page. So on social media, if you go there, ask her questions, she's always available. Alhamdulillah, she'll always answer your questions, mashallah. She's won a lot of awards, a role model to all the women, and we look up to her, mashallah. And just about what Zakira Shyrose wants to do. She intends to, inshallah, return to graduate studies at university in 2021. And we pray for her that she gets, inshallah, a chance of tawfiq to do that, to pursue her PhD. And she wants to work on writing a book in the near future. So inshallah, this is a good start. So thank you. And I won't take a lot of your time. I'll pass it back to you. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. And just give me a moment while I look down. What I'm doing is letting everybody know that I'm starting now. This pandemic has made us multitaskers indeed. Thank God, first of all, for the internet. And the second thing is that, we become these multitaskers who are not only putting our water on the side, advertising at the same time, fixing our mic, getting our technology together. I want to thank Fakiha Badami from Mumbai, who is awake right now at 2 a.m, helping me get myself up on Zoom, as well as my YouTube account, etc. It's just wonderful to have amazing people around the world who become part of getting us technologically together, getting posters ready. I owe so much to all these wonderful people. And I also want to thank Musarat Walji. Sister Musarat is such an incredible person who has put this book club together. It is so important that we keep the love of reading alive in our lives. And I see people here, mashallah, from Dar es Salaam, from Mashhad. I see people here joining us from Leicester, from England, London, UK, Toronto, Seattle. It's lovely how I can recognize all these names. So I can know where people are joining us from. And please do feel free to write in the chat section to let us know where you're joining us from. And also throughout this program, inshallah, I invite you to write anything that interests you, fascinates you, excites you. Feedback continuously will be awesome as well. Any comments, any questions, anything you want to put out there for discussion, it's there. The chat is there in the Zoom as well as on the YouTube. And right now, please go ahead and send links to anyone who wants to join us, who might have forgotten. Also, alhamdulillah, the good thing about putting this on YouTube is that it'll be recorded, so it can be shared in the future as well. But it's nice to have uh, so many of you right here live. There's nothing like being live. There's an energy in the room. And I told Musarat, I told her, like, don't take too long in the introduction because I want to talk, and I want to talk a lot. And so poor thing, she was like wanting to say so much about me, but she was like, okay, without further ado, here's Sister Shyrose. I thank you so much, Musarat, for that. And I'm happy to see people joining, and I've sent this out to people, letting them know that, listen, you don't have to be of a certain faith at all. This discussion today, this book is not an Islamic book. It is also open to men, women, children, people of all ages. So the sky's the limit. I want to also welcome Swami Narayan, who is from Lucknow, who's also joined us. And mashallah, I have a lot of interfaith friends from all over the world: Swamis, priests, Catholics, Hindus, Muslims, Shia, Sunni. So it's really wonderful to have everyone here, because this topic is so fascinating. And whether you are a person of faith or whether you have no faith, whether you are male, female, anything, you can join. And so many of us, inshallah, will be able to get something out of this, inshallah. Forgive me when I do look down. It is because I'm also looking at a lot of texts coming in, and it's wonderful when I get people sending comments and questions. I've asked Sister Musarat to also take note of any questions coming in, so that she'll send those to me. That way I'm not distracted by the chat itself. And so inshallah, now we can start. So Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. And I also want to just start with the fact that I am a Shia Muslim. I am a preacher. And so this does begin with a peace, a greeting, Assalamu alaikum. Even though I know many of you who have joined us today are not necessarily Muslim or of any faith even, and that's fine. Everyone's welcome here, but I am a person of faith, and I'm also known as a preacher. Zakira is my title in that regard. So if you hear this word Zakira, it is because I am a preacher. So that's full disclosure right there. I'm a person of faith, and so much of what I'm talking about is flavored with my faith. But also, I'm also a person who has done a degree in psychology and a degree in education. And as Musarat said, I'm so excited to start my PhD, inshallah, whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills for that to happen. I'm ready when He's ready. And so I'm also a person who takes an interest in academics and in having things researched well, and having things that can be appreciated by people of faith as well as people who are just academics. And that's why this book is a book that's very close to my heart. So here's the book. It's called Third Man Factor. I read this book, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago. But as you can see, this is how I read my books. I put all these stickies, and this is actually also how if we're reciting from any holy book, it's very important to keep these pages that are really interesting, to make them stand out. My mom always taught me not to write in my books or write on my hands. She was always saying, "No, these are sacred, places. Don't." But I have learned to also write in my books, only because they make the book come alive. I do highlight. I do use a highlighter, but it is sometimes very distracting from the reading. Sometimes I go back and I put these on. I don't bend my pages. Oh, this is sacred. I've always loved books. When I was in Birmingham, I had given a talk on my favorite books, and I had talked about I think I talked about at least 300 books. I had pictures of these books, and I hope that I'll be back here with Ikra Library, and we'll talk about my favorite books. I have too many to count. So I look forward to that. So welcome all of you book lovers. Welcome all of you who are interested in fascinating things, mysteries, who have an interest in the occult, some of us, who are also interested in science, who are also interested in religion, who are also interested in this title, Third Man Factor. So what is this book about? When I first read this how did I find out about this book? I was actually reading the newspaper, and I read this book, this review of this book, but it was written by the person who wrote a foreword about this book. He's a doctor. And I was like reading the review, and I was like, whoa, what is this? I need to get a hand on this book. So Dr. Vincent Lam, he's a Toronto ER physician, right? He's in Canada. So he's written the foreword of this book. So they had interviewed him. And then, so the author is John Geiger, but Dr. Vincent Lam went with him mountain climbing. And they were up in I don't know where they were, up in the snow somewhere, in the Arctic somewhere. And John Geiger, who's an explorer, he likes to climb mountains. He told him, he said, you know what? I'm writing a book about this topic. Dr. Vincent Lam said, I know exactly what you're talking about. This has happened to me too. And he said, I want to be involved in this book. So he wrote the foreword. And subhanAllah, it's an exciting book indeed. Oops. Let me put it on silent. I loved this book because of many reasons. Let me share screen, and I'm going to show you. I made a quick PowerPoint to show you why I love this book, so that some of the things I want to say come right up on the screen. Start from beginning. All right, so here it is. You see my screen, inshallah. If you don't, write it in the chat. So this is the book, Third Man Factor by John Geiger. And it is, this is what they say, this is what they've said about this book, that it is an extraordinary account of how people at the very edge of death. Now, this is interesting. This is a survival story, okay? So people at the very edge of death, what do? They sense something. It's an unseen presence, but not always. Some of them actually see this presence. What does this presence do? It encourages them to make a final effort to survive. Now, I loved this. This is a book that has given me hope. This is a book that has given me something to think about, something about, what makes people want to live. And this is one of the reasons that I love this book, because I myself have I love reading stories of survival, but I also love watching movies of people climbing mountains. People who know me closely know this. They know that I love to watch movies about people climbing mountains. I myself am not a mountain climber, but I have started doing things that I found I could never do before. I run marathons, and in that also you really need to push yourself. You feel like you're dying. You feel like you can't do this anymore. You're pushing yourself. I love those kinds of stories because it makes me want to, it inspires me. It makes me want to understand, why do people push themselves to the limit? Why do they climb a mountain? But how did they get there? How do they get back? So that's why this book has really really got me. Okay. Now, this is from the review of the book. It comes on Amazon. These are not my words. So I've just copy pasted this so that we can all understand. This is an incorporeal being. Okay. So this is an otherworldly being. Okay. So the skeptics here are thinking, yeah, right. Now you're going to talk about jinns. You're going to talk about ghosts or, I don't know, imaginary characters. Remember, they are doctors who have been interested in this book and this phenomenon. So they're talking about trying to understand, why do people suddenly see things that are not there? Okay. So this incorporeal being offers a feeling of hope, protection. Also, it guides. It doesn't just say you gotta live. It tells you what you need to do to live. All right. And then, so we're gonna, inshallah, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives me enough time, and I don't want to give away the entire book. So I'll give you some, as we say in Urdu, jhalak, glimpses, drops, so that somebody feels like, I want to have the whole rain. I want to see the whole ocean. That's what my job is today, to get you excited about a book, any book, but especially this book, right? Now, what happens to this person? They're convinced that they're not alone. That's the interesting thing. They suddenly feel that they're not alone, right? And then scientists have given this a name called the third man factor. Basically, there are two people there, and then there's a third person with them. Why is it called third man? I mean, it's not just alone. If you're alone, it's a second man. Because this phenomenon has happened with people who have been in groups. They have talked about like a whole group. Sometimes hundreds of people have all said, I saw that person. You saw them too? And they all described this person. They all described the same person. They've all described the same clothing. And often people who have described what happened to them said, we were two people. Afterwards, we talked to each other and said, I got to tell you something. Something happened to me on that mountain. I think I went crazy. I think, but I'm not crazy. I saw someone. And I'm talking about this and I'm getting goosebumps because that person says to them, that friend, oh my God, I saw him too. You saw him too? I thought I was crazy. And the friend's like, no, I thought I was crazy. And they're both like, what did he look like? And then when they describe him, both of them are saying the same exact description. So if science tells us that all of us make up this because it's a survival skill, how do you explain that we all see the same kind of person? That's the mystery. So this book is a mystery. And yes, there's this one of the questions that has come up. Was there any commonality between the people who felt this presence? Yes, this book, that's why I love this book. It tells you the scientific things. It talks about studies, questioning. It's actually a detective story. The person, John Geiger, has himself experienced it. And then he has taken stories from like the 1800s. Then he's taken stories from right now. And he has found a commonality of what the people saw, what the people felt, and then gone through scientific studies that could possibly explain this. Let me continue. So this is called the third man factor. Now, here's a question. If only a handful of people had ever seen this third person, we could say, yeah, you guys are all crazy. This is a delusion. It's a hallucination. And it happened to a few people who were stressed. Their mind thought it up. But over the years, this experience has been experienced by 9/11 survivors, people climbing mountains, people at the bottom of the ocean. So if you are on a mountain, altitude sickness, they talked about it. Maybe that's why these people thought this. They were very high up. But this has happened to people who are really at the bottom of the ocean. They've also been in severe cold places. So maybe hypothermia does this to you. But then these are also people who have been alone, prisoner of a war. They've been on a shipwreck. They are survivors on an island. They've been in the airplane. They have been in space. Whoa, that's really freaky. All of them have escaped, so they got to tell the tale. Okay? They all said, I saw something. I felt it. It helped me. It was a guardian. It just didn't show up and say, hi. It wasn't there to scare you and say, boo. This person helped them get out. So something happens in the human mind, in the human soul, in the human, like, auditory senses, because they talked to them. They shared food with them. Yes. Some of them saw them with their very eyes. So you got to read the book to understand who these people are and what they saw. And then people have tried to explain it as a hallucination, as a divine intervention. What I like about this book is Dr. Vincent Lamb, as well as John Geiger, as well as the people who talk about this, have talked about God. They're not scared about, talking about God. They're not trying to be politically correct and say, sorry, I believe in God. Others were like, I'm an atheist and I saw something. Explain this to me. And even Richard Dawkins, a diehard, dead atheist, also looked into this phenomenon because he wanted to believe also. That's what he claims. And then this book also talks about neurological research. That's why I love this book. And this is a best-selling award-winning author. So he writes it beautifully. He spent 6 years discussing physiological, psychological, and historical reason. Why do you need physiological? Physiological helps you understand what happens to the body. What was the common physical, scientific thing that these people were going through? Now, so he blends this analysis with stories, and that's why I love this book. It's a chicken soup for the soul, but also it has amazing, well-written stories. It has first-person encounters to people like Ron DeFrancisco, who was the last person who got out of the World Trade Center. He tells his story. When you read this book, inshallah, you will feel how I felt. You're going to feel a lot of goosebumps. You're going to feel like, even right now, even though I've only had one coffee, this book does something to me. I already, I feel goosebumps, especially because I myself have experienced the third man factor. We only have an hour and 20 minutes total for this program. And as always, I always have a lot to say. So I'm going to do my best to end, but I want to also hear your stories. I know a lot of you are here because you have seen the third man factor. You've experienced the third man factor. I know a lot of you have heard from people who have talked about this person that they saw. I'm also one of those people, and I talked about it openly. There are videos of me, for example, when I got my award, when Ahlul Bayt TV gave me their award for Award of Excellence. So look that up. It's also on this channel, of my YouTube channel. You could look up this video. God bless the people who upload these things for me. So in that, I've talked about how I saw a being and I recognized him. What's interesting about all these people who talk about this, they know exactly who that person was. A lot of them will say, that was Imam Ali, let's say. There are no such stories in this book. This is not written by a Muslim, but there are, it does talk about, this author does talk about people who, he talks about the Jewish faith, the Christian faith, about the angels, about the beings that are supposed to come. Talks about angels a lot. By the way, this author wrote another book called, I think, The Angel Factor, if I'm not mistaken. And I want to read that book. I haven't read it yet. But this book itself has a chapter on what is called the angel factor. So I talked about myself many years ago. And a lot of people told me, don't talk about this. I remember when I first talked about it, they told me, people are going to think you're crazy, right? Anyone who tells you, I see dead people, you're going to say, you need to go to the hospital, girl, right? Well, all these people are very famous people who have said, I'm sorry, I'm not crazy, but I saw something. Well, I'm not going to say that, oh, my mind thought this up. I saw who I know was Imam Ali Rida alayhi salam. He's the eighth Imam in the Shia faith. We believe in 14 14 infallibles, and so he's the eighth one of these. And his shrine is in Iran, in Mashhad. I saw Imam Rida alayhi salam, and I spoke to him. I saw him. It felt very real. It was real. If there's anything in my life that I can say is true, you know how sometimes you get a sense of deja vu, you're like, I feel like I've been here before, or did I just see that? There are things you question yourself. This was one moment in my life I can never question. Never, ever, ever. It was something I know was so true. And that's why all these people, they felt that too. That's why they're like, I don't care what you think about me. I saw this. I also smelled a fragrance. And when I went to Mashhad, I smelled that same fragrance. So that was the first time I went to Mashhad, and I was like, I have smelled this before. It was that moment that I saw Imam Rida alayhi salam a few years earlier. I have subsequently experienced that fragrance. It doesn't scare me. I feel like, why now? Why right now? And then I'm like, Imam is with me. How did I know it was him? Because they say, that when you see your Imam, you're going to know who it was. A lot of people ask me, did you look at him in the eyes? Did you look at his face? Tell you the truth, although I can describe exactly what he looks like in the sense that his clothing, out of reverence, I didn't even need to look at him. I was completely fine. I feel like my head bowed, and yet my head was not bowed. I feel like I felt like I could speak to him. This is the thing about God. He's so great, but he makes us be able to talk to him like he's you. Like in Urdu, we say to God. But respected people, we're supposed to say up to, right? It's very strange. It should be like in French, the vous rather than the tu. Because these personalities make you very familiar with them. And I don't really want to talk about my experience because I don't want to waste time. But I will if everybody wants to hear about it. I want to get back to the book because time is of essence. I could talk about this forever, and that's what I was saying to Musarat. I was like, please give me time because I want to say so much, especially because I'm so excited about this book. Now, where is my PowerPoint? Let's go back to my PowerPoint. So what is this? This is what I like about this book, that it brings stories from the past. So it brings the most recent book experience it talks about is from 9/11, because this book itself was published just after 9/11. I'm trying to look for the date here so that I can, published in 2009. Okay, so that's why 9/11 was the most recent one. But Ernest Shackleton was a legendary explorer, and he talked about it. And that's why T.S. Eliot, who was a famous writer, who wrote the very famous book, The Wasteland, discusses this third man was really a term that T.S. Eliot has coined, and we will talk about what he said. Then there is, NASA astronaut, when he was up there in the space station Mir, alone, experienced this third man. So it's fascinating for anyone, this book, because it explains the secret. It's about the secret of survival. And, one of the questions this book asks is if we can conjure up, and if this is really just a scientific thing that happens to us, it's really not true. There is no such thing as ghosts or imams, na'udhu billah, or God, na'udhu billah. If there is nothing but scientific causes, altitude sickness, that can conjure this up, then maybe we can teach people to conjure up this person so that it can help them survive. World-famed climber also says it leads you out of the impossible. If we could figure out how to do this, maybe extreme faith is what we need. It's okay, let's call it placebo. Well then, tell us how to use this placebo. So why do I love this book? It's very beautifully written. It's got suspense. It's got a lot of scary points. Your heart will pound. Um, I found a lot of goosebumps happening to me, but that's because there was a suspension of disbelief you need. For me, it was belief because I believe. But for those who don't believe, um, let it take you where it's supposed to. We need belief. We need to hope. It gives you joy because all of these people survived, right? So they live to tell the tale. It's about adventure, all sorts of adventures. It'll take you to space. It's going to take you to the ocean. It's going to take you. One of the stories, really scary story, is the movie. It's called 144 Hours, I think, something hours. It's about the story of this guy who went mountain climbing, and he went alone because a lot of these daredevils, they go totally alone. They don't tell anybody. They don't take their phone with them. So he was lost in the what is it called? Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon is huge. If you ever go to the Grand Canyon, you'll remember that guy. So what happens is he goes there, falls, gets his arm stuck between this spot, this crack in the wall. His arm gets stuck, and he sits there for like a few days, starving, hot, thirsty, dehydrated, hungry. And he makes the decision. Sorry, this is the gory part. Makes the decision to cut his own arm off so that he can get out. It's a true story. I saw it. It's the movie. I think it's on Netflix now. I saw it in the theater because I had read about this story in this book. And so when I saw the movie coming out, I was like, I need to see this movie. And so I did that. And when I went out there, ya Allah, when I saw that movie, I took my son with me. We were both like riveted to the screen. We're like, what? Because, oh wow, Musarat Walji says that this book is in the Iqra library to borrow. Subhanallah. Also, you can get this book on like the digital version of it for Kindle and is it Kindle or Kinder? I always see the wrong word. But you can also download this entire book in the PDF version of it. So you can read it on your phone. You don't have to buy the actual book. But there is something, I do use PDFs and, cut and pastes of books. I like to have them on my phone. But there is nothing like having a real book. Those who have loved books, make your children love books because yes, books smell of something. Yes, books also have that, that writing of yours when you wrote it when 12 years ago, you've underlined something and you've written something on the side, and this thing that you're like, look at it, it's all worn out, and there's a story the book tells about you, how you were, who you were when you were reading this book. So I love that. I just absolutely love it. So mashallah, that story of this guy who cut his arm off, he tells the story of how the third man factor for him was his mother. His mom was alive. And his mom was looking for him. He didn't keep in touch with his mom. He was very, one of those adventure guys. His mom sat with him. It's in this book. And his mom told him, where are you? And he said, Mom, I'm stuck here. And his mom sat with him while he used a blunt. He didn't have a knife. So he used a blunt something, I don't know, a rock, and went through layers of flesh. It's a gory explanation. Sorry. But he went through tissues and, muscle and bone. Not easy to cut your own arm off. But he said, something made my mom come and talk to me, even though she was alive. So the third man factor can also be someone whose voice that we like, some person that we really feel comfortable with. A lot of people who talk about the third man factor talk about their somebody who had passed away in their lives, who came to tell them, you can get out of this. It is interesting because in Shia literature, we are told even that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he went for Mi'raj, he went to visit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, crossing all the skies, that when he was asked, how did God talk to you? What was his voice? He said, it was the voice of Ali. And Allah said to me, I'm using this voice because it is the most loved one to you. So Allah does something that the person that we love the most, who gives us the comfort, sometimes the third man factor is that person and in that voice. And also when Allah sends somebody to you, when God sends somebody to you, I'm going to speak as a believer, that person is a very comforting presence. And all of these people talk about that. That person was very comforting. The person was my, beloved father who had passed away. And the voice of that person was somebody I knew. So maybe we make this up, khuda na kare. Maybe we're, maybe our mind. But then, even if that is the case, that we make this up, that's a fascinating thing, that the human being can conjure up people that they need to keep them alive. In that guy's case, only his mother could tell him to keep going and saying, it hurts, but you got to cut your arm and get out of here. And it is his mom who wakes up in the middle of the night and says, something's happened to my son. And she then calls every person in the world that she knows. Her son doesn't keep in touch with her. She goes on the internet and figures out how to go on chat groups and find out how to find her son. It gives me goosebumps. This is the mother who finds her son. There was no other way he was going to be found. She sends out the search party for him. And people on the chat group say, yeah, we saw this guy walking alone. And she had no idea he was going to be in the Grand Canyon. It's pretty freaky. Honestly, it is extremely, extremely fascinating. I don't know this answer, but Allah knows. So, and these are all well documented. This book is not to read if you want to get converted or you want to convert somebody. I'm not sitting here trying to convert anybody. I'm just saying this is an awesome book. So it fulfills your appetite. Why did I like this book? This is my list. It filled my appetite. So this is my list. Why do I love this book? One of this is that the appetite for a story. Then it's got science. It's got this, it talks about psychology, spirit, resilience. It's about God, how he works in mysterious ways. Also, it talks about physiology, psychology, theories, explanations. It acts like it's saying, well, okay, so let's say this is the case. Then how come this guy saw the person, even that he was not climbing a mountain, he was lying in his bedroom? So by the way, this doctor himself, Vincent Lamb, Dr. Vincent Lamb, he sees the third man factor, but he was in the shower. He was in the shower. He's like, I wasn't climbing a mountain. I didn't have, physiological things going on. I wasn't hallucinating. My blood sugar wasn't low. I wasn't having altitude sickness, but I did have stress, but I wasn't stressed at that time. I was in the shower. And the being talked to him. He thinks it's an angel. He was in medical school. He says, this being talked to me. And I said, I got to write down. It gave me guidance how to get through my exam, what to write, the mysteries of life. It said so much to him. As soon as he got out of the shower, and this is in the foreword of his book, he's like, you know what? I wrote it all down. I typed it in my computer. I saved it in 2 places on my laptop. I, saved it in like 1 million. And then when he looked for it, it was gone. He says, my computer didn't crash. Where did it go? This is a doctor saying, I lost it. I was awake when I saved it. I read it. It's gone. Also, every person who talks about the third man factor says as soon as he guides us and gets us out of that mess, This person, when you look around, he's gone. He's gone. Some people say, yeah, we saw him saving you, but where is he? Vanishes. Now, Islamic literature tells us that in the ocean, Hazrat Khizr, one of the prophets who is still alive, is known to come and help us in the ocean. Islamic literature also, there are countless hadith that the awaited one, the Messiah, the one who is known as the Al-Muntazir, the awaited one, also known as Imam Zamana, the leader of the time. Imam Zamana, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahum Sharif, our 12th Imam, who is supposed to come back with Isa, Jesus. So those who believe in Jesus coming back, believe in the fact that he will come back with this. He will be the Messiah coming back with him. He's known because he's alive in our literature, comes to help you when you are suffering, when you're struggling, when you are lost, especially. And the literature tells us that he comes when we are in Hajj, in Ziyarah. A lot of people who get lost in these pilgrimage places will tell the story that, this person helped me find my kafala. This person helped me. And in my case, I have also, and again, I've talked about this on TV. It's called Women's Stories, I believe, Ahlul Bayt TV, where I talk about how I was at Masjid Jamkaran and my son was having an anaphylactic shock. He was getting all swollen, and I knew he was dying, literally. And I called out to Imam Zamana. Absolutely, I did. And a man showed up, and he got us out of that place where it was impossible because all the cars were double parked if you've gone to Jamkaran on a Tuesday, and got us the injection that we needed. Otherwise, he would have died. Absolutely. Also took us back to our bus, which was one of 24 buses of our own kafala. I was with a group of 600 people. We were doctors and families of doctors. My husband's a doctor. So we had gone on this Ziyarah trip with doctors. We were 24 buses. This man took me to the right bus. Also, I spoke to him. Absolutely. I prayed for his long life, that he could continue to help people. And when I got into the bus, I told my mother-in-law about it. And then we both looked at each other and were like, how did you know how to get us to the right bus? And when all those questions were coming, we were like, definitely Imam Zamana did this. Again, I get goosebumps because I'm a believer and this is my story. Now, let us go back to my PowerPoint. Here we are. All right. So I like this book because you got to read it a few times. You got to read it as a story. You got to read it now as a scientist. Then you got to read it again to savor the feelings. You got to read it again to read the scientific research, etc. It also gives you so much information about famous expeditions, natural disasters, crises, famous people that you never knew about. For example, the person who did the first flight in the airplane. He talks about being in the air. People who were stuck in the Bermuda Triangle, talking about how they saw the third man. So it makes you wonder why he always looks the same. A lot of people talk about how, he looks like a very simple man, doesn't look rich at all, almost looks like a traveler. So people across time and centuries have talked that this man looks the same. Some people in a group talk about him looking the same. So that's one of the mysteries this book asks about. And it's great for people who want to know. So it also talks about studies, for example, an anesthesiologist, because that's what they do. They get people to be half dead, right? Just alive enough to come back. They talk about how, what happens neurochemically in the brain, right? What happens when you have hypothermia, when you're just about to die. So this happens to people who are lost at sea, blah, blah, blah. Okay, it happens to people who are hypothermic, but then why it happens to people who are at sea or who are in the jungle? Same thing. Anesthesiologistically speaking, if that is such a word. Why do people in the jungle also get through this neurochemical stuff? Why would Charles Lindbergh, right, the guy who was in the plane, says they were co-pilots with him? These people weren't freezing to death when it happened. So it talks about sensory illusions, hallucinations that happens when you're really exerting yourself physically. Also, it's also about monotony. People were sitting there just in the ocean, nothing going on, or in the desert. A lot of accidents that have happened, people say, I saw somebody when I was driving and I braked hard. Well, there was nobody on that highway, nobody in the desert. People talk about mirages and talk about water that they saw, right? It happens in this monotony when there's desert or just ocean. But then also it talks about low blood sugar, high altitude, called cerebral edema, when your brain swells for when there's cold stress. This ghostly apparition. But no, it's not just a halogen, or what is it called? Those things that you can see. But we when we are in the theater these days, they make these things come alive in front of us. And when you go into these 4D in the Disney World or whatever, you're actually reaching out to touch something. I have been in theaters, 3D theaters, where we're all reaching out because we all feel like we can touch the stars. We can touch. It's right there in front of us. All of us are seeing this. But that's special effects. We're all like touching it. We're like, it's here. But that's how human doing this to us. This is different. This is different altogether. That people are actually reaching out. They're sharing food with this person. Talk about it as a guardian angel. And also, okay, let me just quickly go through this. One explorer said that this person was at two places at the same time. So what if this capacity exists in all of us? What if we can turn on what is called the angel factor? What if when we need company, we can make an imaginary friend, and that doesn't mean we're crazy? And they've also talked to children who have imaginary friends, and they're saying they're not imaginary. So we think, oh, maybe it's a jinn. But the jinn doesn't do anything to them. It talks to them. It gives them stories nobody knew. Maybe it's not a jinn. Maybe it is something that the mind can conjure up. We don't know. And so this is a fascinating book indeed. Now, let me take you to some parts of this book, and then we will, inshallah, if anybody wants to speak or ask me something, I am so happy to share this with you. I'm going to share this screen. So this is the book. What I'm going to take you, this is the PDF of the book, and inshallah, always use purchased copies. Try to be ethical. Don't steal books, because these writers, they survive on these royalties, right? So here, the third man factor, surviving the impossible. This is the picture on the book. And that these are the stories. You'll see these two people walking, and they're like, I saw a third guy there. It's really fun. I found it so much, so intriguing. So this book, he wrote it in 2007, but it was published in 2009, the publication I have. So here's what T.S. Eliot wrote about the wasteland. Who is the third who walks beside you? When I count, they're only you and I together. But when I look ahead up the white road, there is always another one walking beside you. Gliding wrapped in a brown mantle, hooded, I do not know whether a man or a woman. But who is that on the other side of you? So he's the one who talked about the third man way back when this explorer talked about it. So here's Vincent Lam when he says that, John Geiger and I were, we were climbing a mountain. John told me, about this third man phenomenon, that he was writing a book. And I said, hey, I experienced that. And then he talks about how he was taking a shower and how when he tried to look for it, he couldn't find it. I distinctly remember having saved the file in two separate locations. Um, my computer had not crashed, but I could find no trace of the dictation of my angel. So he talks about, as a physician, I'm trained to understand and work with certain biological empirical realities, but it doesn't explain everything. And then he says, that this book is about amazing things. So here, this is the one about the 9/11 person, Ron DiFrancesco. So he talks about, either he tells a story, some people talk about right? This happened to me. So he talks about this whole thing and, what happened, the other plane hit and, how he was running and he would go to this building, that building. He would get to these spots where people would be stuck, people would be crying, so here he gets to this place. They were blocked. They couldn't go. There was a wall. He could see panic in their eyes, the people there were a dozen people there, stretched out, face down on the concrete floor, others crouched in all corners, gasping for air. So he says, we all basically had to give up, we just basically had to lay down and die. Then something remarkable happened. This is all from this book, Now I'm reading from the PDF. Someone told me to get up. Someone, he said, called me. Now, this is in 9/11. This is an Italian guy telling us this story. Get up. It addressed DiFrancesco by the first name. Said his name. Hey, get up. You can do this. But it was more than a voice. There was a vivid sense of physical presence. He had the sensation that somebody lifted me up. Somebody literally lifted him. He felt he was being guided. I was led to the stairs. I don't think someone grabbed my hand, but I was definitely led. And then he get to the point, he saw a point of light. Still, as he was about, he was recoiling, fire, etc. Someone helped him. The angel urged him. There was still danger. So it led me to the stairwell, led me to break through, led me to run through the fire, There was obviously somebody encouraging me. That's not where you go. You don't go toward the fire. He covered his head with his forearms and continued down, now running. He was singed by the fire. He believed the flames continued for 3 stories. Finally, he reached a clear lit stairwell below the fire on the 66th floor. Only then did he sense a benevolent helper, one who had been with him for 5 minutes. It said, I think at that point, it let me go. I don't know if you're getting goosebumps, but I am. So then he says at the end, he kept meeting firefighters. People were like, I don't know, just leave me alone. People were like, go, leave me alone. So he was alone. 56 minutes had passed since the plane had hit. At this point, when he gets to the floor, as he approached, this thing told him, run from this place, this spot. So he runs. And then he looks back and he hears this ungodly roar. He sees the whole building fall behind him. He makes it out of that building for a second. And all those firefighters who died in that building, he saw them. They told him, just go. They were going up. So they had all rushed in and he rushed out. And he was the last person at the South Tower. To this day, he cannot understand why he survived when so many others did not. But he has no doubt about the reason for his escape. A man of deep religious conviction, he attributes it to a third man intervention. Here, there's another story. This person says, I suddenly felt flushed. Seemed like the field of my vision had become brighter. Now, this is a woman in a cave. There was no doubt in her mind that someone was with her in the cave. But she believes it was her dead husband. She heard his voice communicating mentally with her. All right, Steffi, calm down. Remember? Believe you can. Believe you can't. Either way, you are right. Remember? It's something Palmer, her husband, used to say to her all the time. So this being also uses words from your loved one so you don't get scared. It says the right things. It gave her the inner strength. Schwab was stunned by this intervention. She sat there on the floor of the cave trying to get a handle on why my brain was going this route. About 15 minutes had passed since she realized she has lost a line. Time was running out, etc., etc. Here, the widow effect. And this chapter, now see if you get a PDF, you can actually bookmark things. So Dr. Griffith, he talks about the British Everest expedition. This is in 1953. Sir Edmund Hillary, the first person who went with his Sherpa, Tenzing Norgay, as well, right? These two went up to the Everest, the first people who ever made it up there. And what happens? In their book, Man at High Altitude, these guys, they talk about this phantom companion. They too viewed encounters with the presence of a symptom of extreme altitude, arguing hypoxia, a deficiency in the amount of oxygen reaching the body tissues, exerts an increasingly severe effect on higher cerebral functions. But Heath and Williams made an important additional observation. They acknowledged that the experience is a help. The phantom experience is probably, okay, let's say it's fabricated, but it not only gives you a psychological support, it is an expert. It knows things others don't know. He climbs and he says that, okay, we agree the extra companion is comforting, suggests a number of relevant factors. Sleep deprivation, anxiety, but broke with the pattern by expressing doubt that metabolic disturbance such as hypoxia is, so here they're giving you all this scientific stuff. Children will give this unseen being a name. They will say, it's an air of reality. Their playmate, they're saying, you know, when I needed him, my imaginary companion was always there, but then he went away. I don't see him anymore, they'll say. That's because I don't need him. Now we'll say, oh, he made friends, she made friends, they don't. But they're like, no, through that time of bullying, through that terrible time in my life, this person, I needed them. The angel switch. So here we talked about this. Each of these explorers, Sir Ernest Shackleton, this is the one that T.S. Eliot wrote about and then wrote that piece of poetry. He says that all of these people were engaged in an endeavor that pushed them to the bare limits. They had reached this point of sufficient extremity to have experienced an additional unaccountable companion. In my case, when I saw Imam Rida alayhi salam, I also was going through something where I needed Imam. That absolutely. My husband said to me, maybe you conjured him up. Maybe, you know, your mind wanted to see Imam, so you saw him. I was like, if that's the case, then yes, I wanted to see Imam and he came. And yeah, if that's the case, I'm so glad he showed me what I needed to see. So maybe we can call Imam. In my case, you know what they say, Nadi Aliyan Mother al Ajayib. Call upon Ali, the one who can do wonders. The Holy Prophet was recommended by God to do that. As a Muslim, I'm sharing this with you. And so those who are not Muslims can understand what I'm talking about, that it was in the battlefield. And Jibreel, the angel, comes and says, Ya Rasulullah, O Prophet of God, you need to ask Ali now to help you get through this Khyber, this impenetrable fort. And so he called on Ali. And so we are often taught, and I've talked to many Hindus who've told me that they have learned to say, Ya Ali Madad. I remember talking to a Hindu once and I said, how do you know how to do that? He said, since we were young, my parents taught us, Ya Ali Madad, and they would lift something like a heavy thing and it would happen because Ali comes. And I smiled and I said, yes, yeah, Imam Ali is for everyone. You call upon Ali and he comes. And in Urdu, there is this piece of poetry where the person says, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him heaven, where he says, Jab khuda ko pukara, Ali aa gaye. Jab Ali aa gaye, zindagi aa gayi. Zindagi aa gayi, roshani aa gayi, roshani aa gayi, aa gayi, aa gayi. Basically, he's saying, when I called out to God, Ali showed up. Now, others will say, excuse me, are you saying God is Ali? Astaghfirullah, na'udhu billah, God forbid. No, we're not saying that. Allah sends people to help us. He chooses Ali. That is his mode of helping. That's how he intervenes in our lives and helps us. So when you call upon God, he sends Ali. And when Ali comes, all the difficulties become easy to surmount. So back to this, that each of these, the angel switch, that's why I've talked about Imam Ali in my case, that what happens here is this sensory illusion that so many people have called, okay? And this I had in my, I had this in my PowerPoint. Basically all these things, a sensory illusion, it could be physical exertion, glucose, blood, glucose, da 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 da, it could be any of this. But it doesn't still answer a lot of the mysteries that how come it looks the same, how come. What was possibly the most amazing thing about it is that both I and Robert Schauber had at the same time seen it. So they both hit a moment where both these people saw it. This is his climbing partner, Polish climber, 1985. Well, some of these people talked about this third man like just before they died. They were like, they said to their fellow friend, before I die, I want to say something. Did you see this guy too? And they were like, yes, I saw him too. So it's something that they confessed later on in life. So what was the most amazing thing about it is that both I and Robert Shaw had seen this. And what they had seen is that, I want to tell you something, Robert, but it's very strange. I know what you mean, he said. You sense him, the third person. Yes. Do you? Yes. So then they confess to each other about these people that they've seen. And last, I wanted to just share this. So what if the capacity exists in every one of us? What if there is a brain mechanism that allows us, when we are most alone, to suddenly be in the company of another? It may not literally be another person summoned from the collective unconscious, but it is no less startling and revelatory. We have the capacity to conjure up a companion when one is most needed. It is a stirring thought. It is a stirring thought. We evolved yoked into a network of people. Even our dreams are full of them. We are hardwired for people. So we see people that we need to see. See how, look at all the references he puts there. That's what I love about this book, that it tells you about, this expedition, Ernest Shackleton. See, I know. It seemed to be often that we were 4, not 3. Wow. Boss, I had a curious feeling in the march that there was another person with us. 3 were they. In all their affliction, he was afflicted, and the angel of his presence saved them. In his love and in his pity, he redeemed them. Is this your experience? So these are people who have talked about it. And I think that's the one last article have a few minutes, and I want to open this up if anybody wants to even speak. But I would rather you texted something in the chat so that we can please do write at this moment, and I'll share one more article. I will hopefully be able to share with you this article. Here's the link. So if I hopefully can copy paste it, then I can put it in the chat section. So this is an article written on September 24th. By the way, a day after my birthday. My birthday is September 23rd, 2020. Yo, this was written recently. Very recently. Okay. So this is a review of this book, and he talks about how people talked about this, they were marching for 36 hours. Okay. They were going to a whaling station in South Georgia. So these are new stories that are being added to this book now. And Reinhold Messner and polar explorer Peter Hillary had talked about this, right? This is the third man factor. So they say that this happened. So now in Switzerland, they've done this study with all these people. What they do is the test makes people feel so freaked out that they don't do it anymore. What they did was they made people do something. Okay, so you can read this article. And what happens is it makes them feel like there's a ghost in the room. They're also in surgery pressing into certain places in the brain, and people are suddenly seeing things. So the visions that appear to people it's interesting what they did to these people that made this happen. Okay, what they actually, let me just go quickly so you understand. Basically, it grew. Where's that sentence? It's here somewhere. Basically, they wrote on their back. You know how you trace something on somebody's back? You write like A, and then they have to guess if you wrote A. So what they did was they took a healthy human subject, they drew on their back. But with a little bit of delay, they made it come on the wall or something. They did something, okay? And it caused a disconnect between the body's position and the senses. And then an eerie feeling of a ghost came in the room for every one of these participants. Everyone saw a ghost. They made people see a halogen or something, right? Now, what happened? Some of these people saw their dead relatives. Some of them saw their spouses who are alive. Some of them saw people who are in trouble. So they talked about, this article talks about, what's happening. Why do people feel this? And I liked this article because it explains this whole book and explains that what still the mystery is and whether this is a ghost or not. All that truly mattered is that researchers and adventurers alike push the boundaries to experience something greater. The third man is adventure in its purest form, appearing in the harshest places beyond our physical and mental limits as we explore beyond reality to transcend greatest limits within ourselves. So with that, I will stop talking. And if anyone wants to say anything, please go ahead. If anyone wants to speak, we will allow you to we can allow you to unmute yourself. And I see that, thank you so much that I'm getting some good feedback here. Thank you very much. It was fascinating. Could you put the link? Oh yes, thank you for reminding me. Let me see if that link still exists. Yay, it's here. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yes, there. The link is right there now. And I will also put it in the YouTube, in the live stream right now. So I'm asking anybody if they want to say anything or ask anything. I think I've answered the one question that did come up about the commonality. So if anybody wants to ask anything else, this is your chance, or just speak if you've been fascinated, or if you just want to say, that you really loved this book or this presentation. So here I am in the YouTube section. I'm putting in the link so that everyone can also in YouTube. And mashallah, I've got many people in YouTube also messaging. And thank you so much, everyone, for your kind words. And we have a message from also someone in Mashhad writing that he's in the holy shrine of Imam Ali Rida alayhi salam right now and praying for all of us. So the question is, has anyone read this book? And did you like it? And would you like to share something that wasn't talked even about here today? Would you like to share something? Alhamdulillah, we have 6 minutes before we end. So there is time if you would like to say anything. If you want to hear about my experience, I can also do that if you would like. I'll share my story with you, even though it is on the internet. Mind-boggling indeed. Thanks for, I'm not going to say your name, but it is a live chat. I mean, you can, so if you don't mind, Siddiqa writes, mind-boggling. Thanks for sharing your experience on the contents of this book. Jazakallah. And Nurozi Zilla writes, wonderful. And Tahira Dalla says, poetry so beautifully narrated, mashallah, captivating. Thank you, very fascinating. Yes, anything else you want to say, please do. And if you want to hear about my story, then I can tell you in the last 5 minutes that we have, let's use those 5 minutes. And even on YouTube, if anybody wants to write anything in the chat section, if you want to tell me, would you like to share a story? If you saw something that you want to share, I'll share a story while we wait for somebody. So a young lady, well, I wouldn't say young, a lady, Someone writes, I'm sorry to have joined a little late. I've heard lots of people who've experienced these phenomenal experiences when they go to pilgrimage. Absolutely. So let me tell you about one experience of all two, if I have time. So one was a lady who is a lady, alhamdulillah, she just survived Corona. She lives in Birmingham, and she told me her story. And basically, she had arrived in Sweden at the airport, completely lost. And she had her grandchildren with her, and she was completely lost. She didn't speak the language, she didn't have the address, and the people who were supposed to pick her didn't come because her airplane somehow arrived too early, something like this. And she was panicking. And when she asked Imam Zamana to help her, etc., and a man came to her and basically said in her Gujarati language, and he was a fair skinned person, looked very Swedish, was able to speak Swedish. And he said, I've got somebody on saying we would like to hear your story, inshallah. Brother Hassan Rizvi says, thank you. So she said he was able to talk to others, talk to her in her language, Gujarati, and say to her, it's okay, you are the related to such and such person, right? And she was like, how do you know who I'm related to? And he said, don't worry. And he pulled out his phone or something and had the phone number of her son-in-law's phone number. And called him and said, your mother-in-law is here, please come pick her up. She said to him, how do you know who I am? How do you know who I'm related to? Who are you? He said, I come to London Stanmore Jamaat quite a bit. I come to the mosque, so I know your community. And she's like, how do you know me? You don't know me. And he smiled and he said, I know all of you. And he vanished. And so that's something really strange. There's another story which was really fascinating. This lady told me about. She was with her husband in Miami. And she told us in a group when we were talking about strange things that have ever happened to us. Her name's Shabnam. So Shanaz, I believe. So anyway, I'm very bad with names, but I can't forget the story. It was Miami, and her husband wanted, it was New Year's Eve or something, a day of New Year's Eve. And he said, look, we have to go water jet skiing or something on the, you have to sit on the water, this jet ski. So he really wanted to do that. She's like, no, I don't want to. And so he convinced her. So they got their jackets on. She insisted on the water, on the jacket, life jacket. And so they went very far into the ocean, and they were enjoying themselves, but she was panicking. She was scared, but she was holding on to her husband. Is an experienced swimmer. And what happened is that because the guy was spinning them around, kind of getting really, they were tethered to a boat. They flipped. So they fell off this, what is it called? Is it called a jet ski? My mind just doesn't tell me what it was. But anyway, you know what those are, water, whatchamacallits. I can't remember. So they flipped, and she went flying, and her jacket, the life jacket, flew off her because it was too small for her. So it flew off, and she was sinking, and her husband also had flown off. And the boat guy lost them in the water. The boat guy, they kept screaming to him. He kept looking for them. He thought they drowned, so he went back to the shore. This is in Miami. It happened a few years ago. So they were now stranded in the middle of the ocean. And her husband, who knows how to swim, started to have a heart attack. So she's holding on to him, and he's like, you're pulling me down. I'm dying because of you. I can't do this. So she's grabbing him like people do when you're drowning. And then he started to have chest pains and said, we're both dying. So they both sank, came back up, sank back up. At that time, out of the blue, in this blue water, a man was swimming. And he was smiling, and he said, hold my hand, both of you. Both of them. And she was like, please help me, please help my husband. And so he held both of them, And she's like, he was swimming backwards. He was holding our hand, and he kept talking to us throughout it. And he was swimming backwards, pulling them. And from the hotel room that their kids were in, they had their binoculars on and they could see their parents sinking and a man swimming with them. And so the ambulance was brought to the shore. All that, paramedics, everybody came. This man guided them. He talked to them. He distracted them. When they got to the shore, the paramedics came, everybody came, and she was saying, thank you, thank you. And she was like, he saved us, he saved us. And they were like, Mom, yes, we know. Yeah, we saw it with the binoculars. And as they got her husband, he survived, mashallah, still alive, both of them. They're grandparents now. But that man vanished. And she says, I know without a doubt that was my mom that I called out to. And many people have these stories. And there are many such books of people who feel that they knew exactly who it was who had come to help them, depending on what their faith is. But I will tell you, and I know it's Musarat who has to leave because she has a meeting to go to. Otherwise, this was supposed to go on till 4:30. So we will end this. But 4:30 my time, which is 9:30 London time. But I will say that the person who helped, what was I going to say? Just lost my train of thought. That the person who helps them, that, there is one story of this lady who was lost in a forest. And this man helped them. He helped her. And he guided her back to her home. This was in India many years ago, maybe 50, 60 years ago. They lived in the village, maybe even more. She's passed away now. And what happened was that he helped her. He helped her get home, and then she didn't see him again. But she went to someone's house eventually and saw a picture on the wall who they claimed. She's like, who is this? I've seen this man. He helped me in the jungle. Who is this man? And they're like, well, he's not somebody who's like, this is what we think looks like Imam Ali alayhi salam. That's our Mawla Ali. There was a Shia lady. And she said, that's the man who helped me in the forest. And she became a Shia, and so did her young son. Their last name was Patel. Then their entire, the family of husband, wife, and 3 kids became Shia. Eventually, that lady, that boy who became a Shia with her married my cousin, Semina. They were Chopra, not Patel. I'm sorry. And then that whole family continued to be Shias. And mashallah, that auntie has passed away, but their whole progeny has become Shia. And also their relatives are speakers, Islamic speakers, etc. So, yep, pretty fascinating indeed. But, my apologies if you have joined us as a person who is not from this faith. But this is me telling you this story from my faith, from my experience. Not here to convert you at all. But thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope that this book has fascinated you like it has fascinated me. Loved this book. And I hope that inshallah you will read it. I'd love to read it again because I read this so long ago. I wish I had time. This talk made me come back to this book. I still didn't really read it because I didn't have time, but I love this book. I honestly do. And I've actually recited Majlis about this book years ago. And I look forward to talking about it again, inshallah. Thank you so much. Thank you to all those who are writing to say thank you. And Brother Hassan Rizvi, yes, inshallah, I will. We could have gone 6 more minutes, and I could tell you a few of my own stories. But I know that Musarat has to go, who is our moderator of this group. She has to get to another meeting, so that's why we're ending 6 minutes earlier, because we want her here. We want her to say a goodbye. Oh, what inspired you most about this book? Yeah, it gave me hope. I'm so it gave me a lot of hope. But interestingly, I read this book after I saw Imam Rida alayhi salam. I was trying to think, did I make myself see him because I read this book? Mm-mm. That's why this book was like, oh my God. It sort of reinforced my belief, and I have seen many amazing things in my life. Call me crazy? No, I don't think I'm crazy. I think I'm very spiritual. I have seen things and I have seen miracles because Allah wants me to see them so that I can talk about them. Because Allah has given me this platform so that I have so many people to share with. So maybe that's why Allah allows me. And a lot of people have told me their amazing stories. A lot of people. And so maybe one day we'll meet again and we'll talk about amazing stories that people have told me. And I'll share those with you. And a lot of them say, sure, you can mention my name. Sure. I don't need to mention names, but sometimes people want to know who was it. So I'll do that too. There are many people who are willing to talk about this openly. And a lot of people who say, yeah, don't say my name because I'll look like I'm crazy. But very few people have said that to me. So thank you so much. And if you are sharing the PDF of the book, thank you so much. But also, I do want to say, do buy the book so that you're paying some royalties to John Geiger, so that, we're not doing anything unethical. In Islam, especially, we have this great belief that nothing we do should be taken without permission. Even when we pray salah, we pray our namaz, our prayers, you have to ask if you can pray in that place. I remember asking at McDonald's, can I pray here? And they're like, you can do whatever you want. Why are you asking? I was like, it would not be accepted by my God. So therefore, even the book, don't steal, inshallah. But if you've used the PDF, okay, but then also buy the book so that your royalty did go there, so that you've done your ethical part, inshallah. Thank you so much for all your time. And I will tell Musarat now to say a goodbye from all of us here.
Thank you so much. That was really fascinating. Yes, goosebumps. I've got the book. I haven't finished it, so a confession, but I love the book. I think it's one of those books you might have to read it a couple of times to, get the depth of it. But it's amazing, a wonderful book. My book isn't as good as your copy with all the highlighting bits and everything.
Good.
So,
This is not good. This is a mess.
it will be there soon, inshallah. But amazing. I think we've all experienced or heard families, friends experience the third person feeling in times of needs. A lot of people say when they've gone to Hajj, and just when you need somebody, whether it's an angel or our imams, but they're there. And Zakira Shyrose said, hope. That's all what we live for, hope, isn't it? And yes, thank you so much. It was amazing. A lot of goosebumps. Definitely, I'm sure a lot of people are going to read this book. We have got it in the Iqra library. Thank you so much, Zakira Shyrose. Amazing.
Also, Musarat, I would like to add that please do join this book club, Iqra Library, that Musarat and her, Musarat herself, and probably, I don't know, a team, I'm just saying, do join this book group. It's on Facebook, but you can also join it if you don't have Facebook. No worries. Contact Musarat. She's in the chat here, and she's also, you can join us through YouTube. She'll put the link on the YouTube chat as well. And it makes us read books, especially at a time when people are just busy just playing games on their phone. It's wonderful if we can get our kids to read with us. And you can also gloss over all the technical stuff, read just the stories, and it can still be fun. Musarat has put her phone number up there for us to also, I'm willing to come again if you want to read this book and then we talk about it again. And I think it would be fascinating if people just came with their stories and very boldly shared what they have seen, because it's so fascinating when people say, I saw it with my own eyes, and you're like, honestly, I don't believe you. I'm like, yeah, I did, believe me. And yeah, that's what this book is all about, like, believe me. But yeah, hope. Join Iqra Library, and do give us your feedback even after the fact. Right in the YouTube chat, the Zoom will end, but go to my YouTube channel, Zakira Shyrose, I think it's called. I don't know what my own channel is called. Oh, where's the sound? Sound went away. Whose sound went away? No, it's still there, Sister Nazneen. We're still very much here. You maybe check your phone. Perhaps your sound went away. But yeah, do join us. We would love to. Iqra Library is the FB page. You can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, wherever. But do write, and we'd love to know your feedback, and also about any books you want to talk about, and then we'll get those out. And if inshallah Musarat will have me again, I'll share those 300 books that I love. When I'll go through each book and show you a picture and say why I like that book. That will take a few hours, I think, but I'm happy to come back. And there's so many amazing writers that I've connected Musarrat to, as she knows herself, children's writers, as well as children's book writers, as well as all sorts of amazing things that Ikra Library does. They do all this yoga and fun stuff, story time. It's not just about books. They do a lot more. Right now, they almost have 300 members, but I think they're going to get a lot more. I think
Thank you so
the love of books should happen again and again, and you should be getting 3,000, inshallah, and we will.
So I think we should end here. But just to let you know, if you do go onto Facebook, we've got the Ikra Library Facebook page. We've got a WhatsApp group as well, where we can add you and send you reminders when we've got the sessions. We do have several sessions in the month of March. On Monday, we've got a session about rejection, about thoughts. So we've got different things happening, and we need to know from yourself what you suggest, what recommendations, what kind of stuff you're interested, and we can look into that. And definitely we will, inshallah, have Zakira Shyrose again. It would be nice once we've read a bit of the book, we can get into a discussion as well, and make it more interactive. But thank you so much. And inshallah, we'll see you next time. Thank you. And have a nice weekend. Enjoy your Friday night. Thank you. Khuda Hafiz.
Thank you, everyone.